Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Good Deeds Note Investing Podcast. I am your co-host, Jamie Bateman. Chris is out on some fantasy island or somewhere and vacationing, so I don't think he's missing us right now. But today we have a special guest, Kyle Zimpleman, with Expand Capital Group, and we'll get into Kyle's background. Kyle, how are you doing today?
Doing great. It's Friday. I shaved, so
Nice.
it's nice and shiny today for you guys.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
doing
I
great.
had to schedule you on a podcast to get you cleaned up a little bit or something.
Yeah. Well, when you work at home, that's one thing. You work at home, you're like, why do I need a shave? Why do I need to change my clothes? Why do I need to do this?
we joke, but
you're like, I haven't seen humans in 2 weeks.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. So, Kyle, I know I'm familiar with you, and we've met before, and we've done. I think we did a panel last year together, so we've had some interaction. But for those in the audience and the listener group who are not familiar with you, could you dive into your background a little bit?
Sure. Started in real estate in 1999, 2000 as a realtor. My father started a brokerage a long time ago. He was a realtor. Hey, I got out of school and hey, work for yourself, don't work for somebody else. And, the stress that goes along with that is the give and take. Everyone's like, well, I want to, quit my job and be a full-time investor, or I want to be a full-time something that's not, and I'd be my own boss. I'm like, well, the grass isn't always greener. It's a lot of stress. You can go a lot of months without any income. And that's great when you're 20 years old or whatever it is. But when you get older and you're in your 40s, where I'm at now, in the businesses that we work in, that you collect a lot of money. We syndicate deals. So we put deals together that have long time frames. Some cases there's not income coming in from these type of deals right off the bat. And so you have to have staying power and mental power, I guess, to some extent, that you don't have yourself go nuts over it. So, but yeah, so I started a realtor, then started buying houses. I grew up in Grand Rapids, which is a good market. I knew it was a good market. I just didn't know how good it was until I actually got out of it. So my timing as real estate has been terrible. Absolutely terrible. I got in 2001, bought a house, realized I can make money, bought another house, realized that FHA will give you all this money and you can do 10 loans, 15 loans, you can get portfolio loans, and everybody will give you money. It's great, and you can do 80-20 loans and not have to use any of your own capital. So your cash on cash is, well, it's 1,000% because you use $1 to get your house. Well, that becomes a mistake when rents don't cover it, when the market goes down and people stop paying rents, unless you got Section 8 or maybe a college housing, which is what I did spend a lot of time was college housing. So a lot of people are thinking right now, oh, I'll just raise the rents on people, I'll buy this house, speculate that it's going to go up in value, because everything goes up in value in the last 12 years now.
Right.
And it's the same type of thing mentality wise, that, hey, I'll just buy this and it'll go up and it's a great investment. I can depreciate it, write it off, and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I went through the crash. It wasn't fun. It messed up my credit. Yeah, a few houses had to go the wrong direction, restructured, made my investor. I had no investors before that. I was always my own self. And then in 2010, I started bringing, my buddy who was a doctor and his dad in. So just basically made rich people richer. So that's been my thing since 2010, is just make rich people richer. And so we've started buying properties in Grand Rapids. I did the college model. And then in 2018, I'm like, this market's crazy. There's no way. We've already doubled, or, the market's gone up so much. Rents have gone up so much. There's no way things can go up any higher. You can't shear the sheep anymore. You can't, make a, lady who's making 40 grand a year pay $1,500 a month. well, guess what, you can. And so I sold everything out of the Grand Rapids, and then I had a problem. I go, okay, now I have money for probably the first time in a long time. What the hell do you do with it? I don't want to put it back in the same house I just bought. So I started learning about notes. And I said, okay, well, this is kind of an asymmetrical risk, really, in a sense that I can buy this below market. If they default, depending on the state and whatever else, and whether it's a CFD or a land contract or whatever you want to call them, or if it's just a straight up mortgage, you have certain, parameters within that, and it's supposed to be more of a hands-off investment. Hands off.
Let me just, I just think you fit in really well with the kind of the culture of this podcast that Chris and Gail started, and then Chris and I have continued, where we try to tell it like it is, and there's pros and cons to everything, right? And that includes note investing. So yeah, but have you tried sarcasm, Kyle?
That's all I do. My wife tells me. Just had enough of that over the years. So yeah, so 2018, started doing the same thing we all did, listening to Scott Carson and some other, Eddie Speeds, and started going to note expos and these other things. I was just fascinated by it, mostly because it was a world I didn't know. I was just like, wow, I've always bought it at the very end of the foreclosure, at the REO stage, where there was always competition, and I had to be the first guy knocking on the door with cash. And I was buying houses during that last crash where we would put the earnest money equal to our purchase price and have no exit. Sight unseen sometimes. Just, I knew it was going to be a good deal, and I didn't know how good Grand Rapids was. It just kept on going up and up. Now I can't even get close to any of the stuff I used to own, and the value has just gone ridiculous. Crazy. I mean, yeah, I can't make sense of it. So now the new threat, in my opinion, is and I haven't been right, timing markets at all. Obviously 2018 wasn't the time to get out. If I just sat there, I would have doubled my money, maybe better, and not had to deal with all the stress that goes along with CFDs and harbor loans and home opportunities and all these other different outfits that bought this stuff, and maybe the paper was clean, maybe it wasn't. And then borrowers, the biggest issue I think in note investing is the difference between a renter and a borrower. Okay. And the rights that go along with that is that you assume, hey, well, if they're a renter and they don't take care of the property, you move them out, you clean the place up, you take their deposit, and you pay the water bill with it, and you go, well, that was a mistake. You buy a property, you buy a note with a person you don't even know, with a little bit of pay history that shows that, oh yeah, they try to make their payments. And you don't know the inside looks like the house, and you just go off comps and everything else, and you hope it's going to be great. Well, when it's not great, you can't move them out. And the worst thing that happens is not that they become non-performing completely, they become sub-performing. So what will happen is you'll go 3 months, 4 months, you'll take them to court, you'll spend the money, they'll come up with the 3 months, 4 months they got to come up with, and then you start the process over and over again. Very little money on a property that has a ton of equity that's not your equity. Right. You still sell it.
And then your servicer is charging you a non-performing fee every month because the loan is, even if they reinstated, a lot of servicers will not switch that automatically to a performing loan. So you're getting kind of hit from all angles, and you're kind of stuck, right? At that point,
you're stuck. They're not paying the water bills. They're not taking care of the property. You're getting nice love letters from the city because you're on. If it's a CFD, which there's differences. Mortgages, they're better, but they're also not better if you're in certain states. Like I'm in Michigan, and I would rather have a CFD, or what they call land contracts here, in Michigan, and I would rather than have a mortgage. And the reason, because it's a forfeiture state for land contracts. It's a much faster process than going through a full mortgage.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what our,
Yeah. So like if for let's just zoom out for a second here and see what can you let us know kind of what your current state is as far as your current portfolio, whether that's notes, real estate. I know you mentioned to me before we hit record that you're kind of dialing down on the note side of things a little bit potentially, but kind of speak to your current portfolio, where you are headed, personally with your business. And then we can dive into kind of states and Michigan in particular.
Yeah, I was mostly note heavy. Michigan, Ohio, northern Indiana areas, Indianapolis. Now, I guess states that I didn't know to avoid when I first got started was Kentucky was a mistake.
Okay.
Mistake.
Well, why is that?
Florida was a mistake for non-performing because and I didn't realize it till you go down to Orlando, and then you're going down the expressway. Every person is bankruptcy, $499, blah, blah, bankruptcy. You want to stay in your house for 15 years without paying? We could do that. And that right. And I've got a great lawyer down there. She helped out. Erin Quinn, most people know Erin.
Yeah, she's been on the show before.
Yeah, and she's great. But the issue was there is they know how to play the game, and so I bought from Penny Mac a non-performing that was literally like a month before the sheriff's sale. So I'm like, this is going to be easy peasy. The day of the thing, they filed the BK bankruptcy, which puts the stay on it. And I go, okay, well, what do we do now? Well, we have to wait. We have to file. We have to do all this other stuff. We get it back 6 months later. We get the day of. I'm like, please, God, don't do it again. They do it again. This time it's the wife. And then they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then I realized, well, this is why it's been non-conforming for 4 years. And,
Right. It's not that the note holder before you was an idiot.
Right. So then as timing goes, I sold that, and then I think their last ability to do it ended, and they made the next guy made a ton of money. So that's how it happens usually, as I learned the hard way on those things. But so I haven't done much in Florida. CFDs aren't treated well in Florida. They're basically treated like a mortgage. So it doesn't make a lot of sense since it's low value or low balance, and somebody else is going to buy it. You're just going to be the guy that's the money.
So do you still own rentals at all, or what is your current portfolio?
I got away from rentals because I was like, okay, the market seems way hot. I don't want to be the next guy in line buying too much. But I've gotten back into the some of the single family stuff. Apartments I still think are it's so speculative. You can win big, but you can lose big real quick. I was selling apartment buildings in the 2008, 2009. It's a reason why I came over to the Metro Detroit side of the business from Grand Rapids.
Okay.
And it was just a bloodbath. I mean, all the numbers that make sense when you buy it don't make sense when it goes the wrong direction. So,
so you think that could be on the horizon potentially?
I don't know. I just know it's too hot for me. I can't understand $100,000 a unit pricing, and we'll just keep on raising rents, and then rates won't go up. And in 3 years, we'll get out of our high interest loan and we'll refi into an agency 35-year loan, and everybody gets rich and happy. Well, a lot of things have to happen for that to occur. And when it doesn't happen, it's the same thing as a financial planner. When they're making money, hey, it's because of me. I made you all this money in the market. When it doesn't happen, it's the market's fault.
Told you there was risk, right?
It's the same thing with the syndicators. It's like where I'm going with business is probably not multifamily, unless there is something that really, really makes sense. Construction doesn't make any sense because of construction costs. You'll never make it in that, most likely, by the time that happens. And so where the real money is, but the real risk, is assisted living. That's where I'm kind of going.
Okay.
With things.
Interesting.
Because it's kind of like, COVID, there's still the COVID hangover there where people are still nervous about that business. There's a huge demand coming our way with that. And so I just got into a small, 40 bed deal, in which I'm just a very small partner in, but I was going to take down the whole thing until I realized how management heavy it was, and how, you think there's a lot of risk in litigation in notes. There's a lot, and it's 10 times worse in that business.
Yeah. So actually, if you don't mind just diving into that a little bit, how's that work? Or like, how did you find that deal? Or, what role are you playing, and is it a big single family home, or what?
No, it was built as it's 2 wings. It's 40 beds. It's set up like a nursing home, basically.
Okay.
But it's assisted living, so you have limited care. But the weirdest thing is it came up on I've been trying to get into that, either as, even franchising with, the visiting angels or something like that.
Yeah.
But finding employees that are going to show up, there's a shortage of everything right now, and there's especially a shortage of nursing. So you can't find nurses that will show up, or they want just as much money as you're going to make on the deal. They're going to want.
Right.
And so that doesn't make sense because they're not taking any risk. So anyway, I was looking into doing that deals like that, and I came across it on an auction site. I was like, what is this doing in an auction block? Number one, it's performing in a sense. I guess when you say performing, it's more of a note thing, but there's people in there, and there's employees, and there's everything else going on.
So it was a functioning business,
operating
assisted living.
And so I knew a guy that was doing that, had turned around an 86 bed in a different market. And so I said, hey, I don't know, is this a deal? He's like, this is a deal. So long story short, we lost at the auction. But I kept in touch with the brokers, and I said, hey, if it goes sideways, let me know. Well, some hotel operator was just playing around and just bidding up stuff and spending tons of money on buying. Suppose he was buying a hotel a month or something, I don't know. So he threw this in the mix. Anyways, he says he doesn't want to do it. So we got into the mix on it. And the issue came about with how to raise the capital and who would do what. And that's where we kind of parted on a sense, because I said, hey, I can't raise the money on just making 10% from my investors with all this risk. And they're like, well, we can raise the money. And I'm like, well, let me try to do it a different way. So I try to use the same management, which is not usually a good plan. And what happened was this REIT bought 10 different buildings in Michigan, or facilities. This was like the redhead stepchild.
Okay.
So they just want to get rid of it, and I'm like, this is the type of things I'm looking for. Haven't found this in a long time. The values really made sense, but the issue is management. So the manager, long story, I'll get real quick. Long story short is I couldn't stick around with the same management company because the numbers they're saying it was all COVID related for 2020, and that's why the numbers were where they were.
Right.
They wouldn't show me 2019 numbers because of an auction format, and that it was a different owner at the time. So
but I mean, they bought it. They should still
have those numbers.
Have had access to those numbers, right?
But in an auction, you're technically like, hey, you're buying at auction price.
It's like
I'm like, well, I'm not, because I didn't buy it at the auction. I lost. I'm trying to buy it now, and here's what I'm doing now. So I changed everything up. And then once I saw 2019 numbers, I went, wait, these 19 numbers are just as crappy as 2020 numbers. you're lying to me, and or whatever. I'm not saying they lied, but they being the manager, other management company. So I brought the other guys back in, and I got a small piece of the deal. That's the long story short.
Okay.
And they're going to make a ton of money, and I'll make a little bit.
So is that like, do you have an equity slice in that? Or
yeah, I got a little equity piece on it.
Gotcha.
Or bring the deal in.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, I do think there's a huge opportunity, like in that niche for sure. Obviously, there's a lot of baby boomers, and just numbers wise, it makes a lot of sense. So
so numbers wise, it was $1.2 million coming in, 1.25 going out. So
okay,
that's the issue with that business is like you could pay for everybody, employees and everybody, and you get nothing, and you actually pay to have people in there.
I see. Interesting.
So that's why it's management heavy, and it's a very dangerous business to get into if you don't know what you're doing.
Okay, so you have that deal, and then you said some single family rentals as well.
Yeah, and then in the notes, obviously there, we got the notes with an investment group, and I think now is a good time to go full cycle and just get out of it for a number of reasons. But one is, these are usually about 3-year deals I put together, and so we're coming on that 3-4 year mark. Yeah, and last year kind of scared the crap out of me. I'm like, man, I don't want to be on the wrong end of this business again. Stuck with at that time I bought a bunch of stuff in Ohio, Cleveland Heights, that were non-performing notes that we flipped basically. Sure. Yeah. I just got done, getting through that whole process, dealing with contractors, getting this beautiful house all done. Right. And it's now April 2020. Wow. We're getting ready. Spring market, here we come. And it's like, oh man. So I didn't want to do any more of that. But we're going full cycle, get everybody's money back, get my money out of it too, which is probably the biggest part of it is, when your money's tied up in notes, you can't leverage it. Yeah, sure. It's much harder to leverage than hard real estate. You can partials and all that other stuff. But it's not in the same sense where you can put a mortgage on it. You can't walk into a bank and get No, for sure. That's not happening. And so and it's not as liquid as people think. So getting liquid, and part of the reason is, and is probably another reason why I'm probably completely wrong is, but who knows, is, I read a lot of, Ray Dalio, and Karl Marx, not Karl Marx. Anyway, guys that are all cycle theorists, and they've been through cycles, they know there's a cycle. Warren Buffett, everyone quotes him, and it's right. Right now, the most popular thing to be in is apartments and houses, because it goes up, 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 right? Sure. And there's a huge demand, and maybe, I don't know. So another thing you mentioned to me before we hit record was inflation. And so how does that play into as far as being a note investor from your perspective? So that's I guess I read a lot, which probably is, everyone says that's good, but these 22-year-old kids coming out that are like, I bought an apartment building and I syndicated and I made $2.7 million. And here's the book on how to do it. You buy it and you just sit on it. But the inflation is a huge problem for money in particular, is because it's going to cost more for that same dollar to buy your purchasing power. And we've seen that in housing, we've seen that in food costs, we see that in lumber, whatever else. It's definitely here on some level for sure. It's already here. Yeah, and how that, and governments want that to occur because it actually is a tax on its people. How do you get a ton of money raised up and given to whatever you want to fund, infrastructure, or give it to the banks or bond holders or whatever you want to do there to keep the markets propped. You can't go in and say, guys, we're going to raise taxes a ton, everybody, and it's going to be great for everybody but you. No, what you do is you just print the damn money, and now everything's worth a lot more money. Not worth more, it costs more now.
Yeah,
and
sure.
So the problem is that person making 40 grand at working at Walmart or whatever else is still going to make 40 grand next year and the following year. However, their food costs, everything else goes up. They're paying by inflation. And then the government's paying down that inflation in theory. Well, they don't pay down anything, but if they were to, like they did in World War II, World War II was the biggest inflation thing that occurred because they had printed a bunch of money. And then they let it run at 5% for like 10 years to pay down debt, supposedly.
Okay.
Now I think they're doing the same thing where they're going to let this thing run, and then we're going to have possibly the same type of issues we had in the 70s, early 80s. Like my dad was selling real estate in the early 80s, 18, 19, whatever percent interest rate. And everyone's upset about, Harbor's 10% rate.
Right.
You guys are gouging people. I'm like, they're paying $300 a month. Come on.
Right.
So where do you find that?
So if you're either a lender or a performing note buyer in particular, you're
on the wrong. You're possibly on the wrong side of the business, because right now you take out debt, you buy property, it either goes up in value or you raise your rents and you pay down that cheaper debt with cheaper dollars in the future. Right. It gets confusing.
But if you're a borrower, your $300 today isn't going to, $300 in 5 years is worth less, right, than it is now. So your payment is really less than it was, 5 years ago.
And you're stuck with 300 payments left on it, or
Now let me ask you this: if do you think we're going to see distress? I mean, I know nobody has a crystal ball. I'm not backing you into a corner as far as predictions, but I mean, do you think we're going to see more NPLs hit the market?
Yeah, but it's going to happen behind the scenes. The big stuff happened behind the scenes last time, and I thought, well, I'll be part of it this time around, and it's just not going to I don't think it's going to trickle down to us like it did before, where all this stuff went from the hedge funds or from whoever down to us. I don't think it's going to occur that way. It's going to occur kind of how like HUD sells stuff now, where it's going to be a lot of stipulations. You gotta like keep the borrowers in there. You gotta work out payment plans with them. So
so more strings attached and more. Also, I think other hedge funds and bigger note funds have their systems in place now, which they didn't before.
Another thing I didn't realize about FHA loans and whatnot is the servicing rates. So you can make $30 a month or whatever it is.
No worries.
You can make $30 a month per loan or something. When you buy 1,000 of those, there's the money. That's why you're buying it at 102%, because you don't care, about that rate. So, and you're never going to sell it, or you're gonna sell it off to Wall Street. And grandma's going to buy it and get 1.2% on her bond. But,
all right. So if I'm a brand new, note investor, real estate investor, is there anything to get excited about? What do I do if I'm trying to say I am 22 and I'm trying to figure out which direction to go with my investment strategy?
Right. Okay. So in 2010, when I started getting other investors involved, I said, hey, I expect 3 to 5% appreciation. That's kind of the mark there. So if you buy for 100, next year it's worth 103, 100, multiplies. And maybe it goes down again, maybe it doesn't. But we also have a 15-year mortgage that we're going to pay off. And so In 15 years, we're going to make money. In the meantime, we're going to have good write-offs. And we're gonna
Right.
maybe we'll make some money one year. And it's exactly what happened. And this is when we were buying college stuff that was $1,500 a month, college housing. Now it's, I don't know what it is now, but so in theory we should have been making a lot more money. But hey, the roof went bad, or had to get painted, or the seeds on our butt, or there was water backup, and we have to redo the sewer line. There goes $6,000. There goes all the profit that year. You know. People don't realize, oh, it's not just PITI, you know, it's
so okay.
CapEx. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you mentioned assisted living, but any other
well, I guess back to that note is, so I'm 22 and I put, you know, read the book The Secret and other things. I said, you know what, when I'm 40, that'll be, you know, 15 years from now, 18 years from now, if I buy 20 houses and I'm only making $100 a month per property house, so I make $1,000 on 20, I make 20 grand a year. I have another business, or I'm working for somebody. In 18 years, I'll be 40. I'll have all those houses paid off. That's how you make money in real estate, when the government doesn't print it for you and create artificial appreciation. So
it's a long-term play.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not saying it, and then it's going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to go all around, probably in that 18-year period. But let's say it's worth exactly 100 grand, exactly what you bought it for. You don't owe anything on it then, not at that point. So it should be a get rich slow business, but everybody thinks it's a get rich quick because you can get low interest rates, and you just have to be the next guy outbidding the next guy.
It sounds like you're saying, you know, if you take a long-term approach and you have, you know, you properly set your expectations, I guess. Then
don't try to make a business
term
out of it. Try to make it a side hustle.
Okay. So no, that's a good because you definitely have varying opinions on that. You know, and obviously some people do quite well making it a business, but for kind of your average person, you'd say don't make real estate or notes your kind of central focus as far as your income. Don't put that much pressure on yourself to your focus to draw all of your income from that strategy, but make it a second stream of income.
That's it's okay. And then maybe if you have entrepreneurial spirit, you have other businesses that you run, and this is just a side thing, and then maybe at some point you're able to, and if there's a crash, obviously, you know, and everybody was caught off guard. I was reading the wrong books in 2008, 2009. I was reading Harry Dent books. If you know what Harry Dent is, he's a gold bug. And he said, oh, you know, this is how the world ends, basically. And gold and guns are the only way you're going to survive, you know, because if you got the guns, you're going to have the gold, you know. And he's completely wrong. And I think he's going to be completely wrong again.
So how do you feel about crypto? It's kind of a out of the blue question.
I used to have an insurance company, and some buddies were in that, and they bought when it was up to 18 and it went down to 3,000. And I have a buddy that lives in Hong Kong that works at the exchange there, and they try to make it regulated some way, shape, or form. Okay. He's like, it's not going away. It's going to stick around. It's just the same type of thing. You have a little bit of crypto, you have a little bit of whatever. So I bought at like 5,000. I'm so smart, right? And I bought, I don't know how much of it.
This is Bitcoin you're talking about?
Bitcoin was like 2017, 18, whatever it was.
Okay. Yeah.
And then as a genius, when it doubled, I was like, well, I'll take all the cash off the table and I'll be playing with house money. And then when it doubled again, I went, oh, okay, well, this is another one of these stupid things. I'll, you know, get some of my money back out. And then when it got to 25,000, I sold out of it all. and then it went to
Gotcha.
like 60, and now it's at what, 39. I do.
I'm
keep
not, yeah, I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, and so I'm like, well, where do I buy into this? And I think as a storehouse of value, what's backing it other than, and I read an article for the guys that create Dogcoin or Dogecoin, whatever you call
Yeah,
it.
Dogecoin or something. Yeah.
And these guys don't have any of their own coins now, which I guess that's why
Huh.
they're a little bitter about it when they were bitter. But
Okay.
they're like, hey, it's really just really rich people will, Elon Musk will say,
Mhm.
I bought this, you should too. And then it doubles, and then
Right.
they either sell it or they, leverage against it, or
So
say you can buy
manipulate the
a Tesla
price.
with it,
Right. Right.
so. Is it going to
Gotcha.
be the next thing? No, I think like what China's doing, they're going to have their own currency. The US is going to have their own digital currency,
Mhm.
and then they can really manipulate things more than they really are. We really have a digital currency. No one uses cash now.
Right.
It really
Right.
is digital. So what's the difference?
Right.
You know?
That's a good point. Um, so this is the Good Deeds Note Investing podcast. One of the things that we're trying to start weaving in more intentionally is to talk about a good deed that you've done
Mhm.
through investing, whether that's real estate or notes or something like that. Can you speak to any kind of way that other people have benefited from your investment experience?
Yeah, I'd say most borrowers have at some extent. But when I first got started, I bought a note in Ohio, and I bought it as a dumb person would, with just going through Google's search. It looks great. Well, then it became a non-performer and everything else. And I go, what am I going to do? Am I going to kick this lady out of her house? I mean, I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, well, I probably should see what this thing really looks like. So I went down there because I had some other stuff down there, and I knocked on our door at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning.
Hmm.
I said, I bought
Okay.
your note. I kind of own your house. I stepped back into a huge pile of dog poop that she had sitting there, and I'm like trying to wipe that off. She's opened the door,
Wow.
and I'm like, hi. And I said, what do you want to do? Because I don't want to have to do anything here. I want you to stay. What can you afford to pay? And blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. And so we worked out something that made sense. She had lost a son to heroin or something,
Oh
because
wow.
Ohio was really bad there. And then she had another son that died from a car accident. At least that's her stories. And so I
Mhm.
was like, I definitely can't just kick you out.
Right.
Which you're not gonna make money being a bleeding heart either. But in that
Mhm.
case, we worked something out. I felt good about it. She
Yeah.
kept her house, kept her payments below where we're way below where rent would be. I mean, that's a lot of things when people start saying, I can't make this $300 payment. I'm like,
Right.
well, guess what could happen?
Yeah. You could be
The
paying
house
it.
next door is paying
Yeah.
$1,100 for that same house. Do you want to be
Right.
on that side of it or this side of
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. And you're actually buying down that, you actually have equity in this home.
Yeah, you could sell and make money if you wanted
Right.
to. And another one was, yeah, they weren't making payments, and they called me and they said, we want to give you back the house. I said, okay. Well, I said, why don't you just try to sell it? We can sell it? I'm like, yeah, you should try to sell it. They made like $30,000.
Nice.
And had I been a sneakier bastard, I could have been
Yeah.
like, okay, here's what we'll do. You give me $1,000, I'll get you out of your deal, and
Right.
boom, and
Right.
I make a ton of money.
I do
But
find, like, in my experience in the note space, is just a lot of it is just educating borrowers too. It's not, you can't just sit back and think, oh well, my attorney's handling this or my servicer's handling this. And no, you got to put yourself in the borrower's shoes and see what is best for them, and hopefully that is also what's best for you as well. But a lot of times they don't know. They don't know what their options are. They don't really even know what a CFD is sometimes.
they
So
don't know
it's
what they don't know what they signed. They don't have the
right.
paperwork anywhere.
Right.
They kind of are hand to mouth, and that's probably why they're in the situation they're kind of in. But
Right.
it's in a lot of ways, a lot of people say, oh, these predatory lenders back in 2010. I'm like, the people just, a yes, a lot of that did happen, but a
Right.
lot of almost equal amount, people were
Hmm.
given opportunities,
Right.
and
That they
they
wouldn't have
were
had.
able to double, triple their money
Yeah.
and have a better life for their family and build wealth that
Right.
should have probably not have been given that opportunity.
Yeah. I
Because
agree
at
with
that
you.
time in 2010, 11, there wasn't Dodd-Frank, there wasn't the means test, there wasn't all this other stuff that income, and I was doing a lot of that stuff, that time too, because you buy this stuff, what do you do with it? You can't sell it
Hmm.
because you're the one that just bought it and you were the
Yeah.
highest bidder. So unless you fix it up and flip it,
So those are two good deeds stories for sure. What would you say, just focused on your note career, not the real estate stuff as much, but what would you say are a couple mistakes, or one or two mistakes you've made or lessons you've learned?
So you got to get a financial calculator. Or
Hmm.
know how, you can do the Excel spreadsheets and you can figure
Hmm.
out IRR and all that stuff. The
Hmm.
easiest one I found was I have it on my computer right now. It's the
Hmm.
T value 5 thing,
Hmm. Yeah.
and it's super easy program, and you can learn how, like, okay, here's how many payments are left. If I want a 12% rate, what do I need to buy this at? And it's super easy to do it that
Hmm.
way.
Okay.
Before, I was like, oh, you're supposed to buy this at 70 cents or 75 cents because it's or if it's not performing, you buy it at 60 cents. Well, that
So
doesn't
doesn't
mean
always
anything,
work. Yeah. So you were basing your bids on UPB entirely? Is that
No,
what?
I knew I could figure out. I did that. I figured out the IRRs and stuff.
Gotcha.
But it's a lot easier with the T value
Sure.
calculators. They don't
Yeah.
cost much to buy them and
Right.
programs to use them. So
Okay.
for notes, I do that. Don't buy just because there's a lot of equity, because it's not your equity.
Right.
And if you know there's equity, I'm pretty sure the borrower knows there's equity.
Right. That's a good point.
Unless you're going to do something shady, and then
Right.
have at
Yeah.
it, I guess.
Now, have you primarily bought what were deemed performing loans, or were you in the NPL space? As far as I know, you mentioned a couple that went non-performing, but were you ever targeting non-performers specifically?
Yeah, at first I was, because I had my own money, I just want to keep turning it, was
Hmm.
to just buy non-performing
Yeah.
and run it through its course. And that's when I kind of, realized some of the pitfalls with that is, and if you know how to run a T-value calculator, well,
Hmm.
I made $10,000. Well, it took you 3 years to get there. So
Right.
what is your real return?
Right. Right.
Isn't double your money, whatever it is. It's
Yeah. I guess you did
um,
mention that the one fund or group that was ending at the end of in April of last year. So those sounded like mostly non-performers as well when you bought them, right?
when I did what last year?
What? No, sorry. When
Oh,
you
when I
bought?
bought, oh yeah. So that was Angel Oak, which is a hard money lender.
Yeah.
They had some stuff that they didn't want to deal with Northern Ohio, and now I know why. I knew why, but I didn't know how much of a pain in the butt, not just Cuyahoga County is, but the Cleveland Heights. Anything that has a Heights in it, you got a point of sale. They don't love the fact you're doing anything. They don't care that you're paying double the taxes, and they don't care about any of that. They're just going to fine you and fine you and fine you.
And that is a note and bolt we definitely have not heard before. Is anything with the heights in it, stay away from, I guess.
Well, you should research the city and see
Research
if
it,
there is a
yeah.
point, because the point of sale is a illegal, non-constitutional way where they say, before you buy this house or before you want to sell it, you need to do this, X, Y, and Z. It's my damn house. Okay, I bought it. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna want to it. You technically, if I wanted to take them all the way to federal court, I could, because they don't have a constitutional right to do that.
No, that's interesting. I'm not all that familiar with that, to be honest. I've seen, like, I think Chad Herbshot just mentioned point of sale recently in our Facebook group. But it almost, so it's a township or city.
It's an ordinance that says that before you sell it, we're gonna go in your house.
Yeah.
We're gonna tell you all the things that are wrong with it that need to be fixed before you sell it.
That's crazy.
And if the guy who buys it after you doesn't, so there's a long list. It's going to be $40,000 at least in things that need to be done on some of these. Some of them are like 80 grand. And
Wow.
if you sell it, the guy who buys it has to put that $80,000 in escrow. So he can't use that money to fix up the property.
Wow.
He can do draws against it or something for you. And then you find them every single time you walk in the house. You charge them $150 to walk in the house.
Yeah,
I just charge them for everything else.
That's crazy.
Taxes, back taxes, lawn care. Oh, your house is vacant. That's $300. You got to register as vacant. $300. Oh, you did. They know what you got. Now I get it. They're trying to keep the city, the areas from,
deteriorating. Right.
There's different ways you can do that than the way you're doing it.
No, it's interesting. We're finishing up a small addition at my primary residence, and last week we had the electrical inspector come through, and really all he was supposed to be focused on, in my opinion, was the sunroom and the lights, the addition, right? He starts walking through our whole house and
pointing out.
So we had to, replace some smoke alarms because they weren't all interconnected, and it was just from a personal standpoint, it was kind of triggering for me. I'm like,
it's a violation.
What are you doing? He walked into our bedroom, and it's like, what are you doing? Get out, man. But so that's a small scale, a minor example compared to what you're talking about. So
in the rentals, they do that a lot. I mean, I deal with, areas over here, Redford and other markets that, the second they see it show non-occupied, they just fine you saying you didn't register as a rental. Well, that's because it's a land contract.
It's not.
If you looked a little further, you would have saw a recorded land contract.
I will say they're not. It depends. I've got one now, CFD in Michigan, that the inspector is actually kind of working with me on. Not kind of. He's sending me updates and. So, and this is in, was it Reeves Township or Rives? I'm not sure how you say that, but Rives. I'm not actually sure where. But he, it's almost like he and I are working together to get this issue addressed, so once in a blue moon, there's a refreshing story like that one.
Most of the time, these aren't high-paying jobs. It's mostly a power play that people can go, I can tell you what to do, and I'll just fine you if you don't do it.
Right. Yeah.
And then they come back in after you pay them $150 to come back in the house, and they go, oh, like you said, X, Y, and Z wasn't done. Well, that's not on the original list. Well, I see it now.
Right. So, okay, as we wrap up here, Kyle, you shared a bunch of different notes and bolts throughout this whole thing. Is there anything else that comes to mind as far as a little nugget of wisdom for the listeners?
So try to find equity rather than try to create it.
Okay.
Meaning that if you try to buy a house and you outbid everybody else and you are going to fix it all up and then you're going to create this equity because of what you've done, or you're going to raise the rents because of what you've done, that's speculation. Whereas if you can find a house undervalued in this market, good luck to you if you can. If you can, great. Right. That's how you find it. Or you buy it with notes and you find equity because these are maybe 10-year-old deals. So the note, the loan is from 2015 or 2010. Right. So the values are much lower. So you have, protective equity.
The property value.
Anything else is speculation, really.
Right. Okay. No, that's really good. Okay. Well, looking back on your career, is there anything else you want to hit on, or anything you want to kind of promote, or anything like that?
No, yeah, I'm in between stuff right now. We're just wrapping this, the second fund up with these notes and
Hmm.
getting full cycle. So now I've gone full cycle 3 times with, 3 different investment groups. Every time they gave me money, I gave them a lot more than they gave me. So,
Well, I do think, it's, you kind of tend to downplay your successes a little bit. It's just, I think your personality, it almost sounds like you made all these mistakes and everything, which I'm sure you haven't made mistakes, but it also sounds like you've learned from your mistakes, and you're able to profit in different market cycles. So I do think, our listeners can really benefit from a lot of what you've shared, and potentially even reaching out to you, because you are somebody who's seen several different market cycles, and operated across different asset classes as well. So it's not like you've just been a note guy for the last 2 years and that's all you've ever done. Just even your realtor experience is really beneficial, I would think. So speaking of reaching out, where can our listeners link up with you?
I guess my website is expandcap.com. So expand capital, but that was taken. So expand cap wasn't.
Okay.
So there's a lot of information on there. You feel free to email me from there. I have some, stuff on market cycles. I mean, that's where I am right now, is I'm like, okay, everything else feels nuts right now. I can't understand, what will happen when the government puts 5 trillion into a market. I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
What I do know is markets have cycles, they go up. And if I look at any chart, from 2010 to now, it's just whatever,
Yeah.
straight up.
Right.
And I'm like, at some point, it's probably not going to go straight up. I don't know when. So
Sure.
yeah.
No, and this makes a lot of sense. I mean, you might miss out on a couple of deals, but you're also going to miss out on potential, losses as well. So it sounds like you're regrouping and kind of just holding,
I
holding
think the
steady
next
and
thing
analyzing.
that's gonna hit is when interest rates rise. That's what they've been trying not to do, but they're gonna be forced to do it when inflation really becomes a problem. Just like they had to raise interest rates in the 80s, the Volckers Act and all this other stuff. They had to raise it because otherwise we're going to be printing Zimbabwe dollars or we'll be speaking Chinese.
There you go. All right. Well, expandcap.com is where listeners can reach out to you. Yeah, this has been awesome, Kyle. I really appreciate your time, and thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. And for the listeners out there, please feel free to give us a rating and review, hopefully mostly positive. And please go out and do some good deeds. Take care, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks again. Thank you.